Hello, my name is Josh Goodman, and this is A Goodman's Tale. A Goodman's Tale is a place where we talk about life. We talk about the nitty, the gritty, the up, the down, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good days, the bad days, the hard days, and the easy days, the sad days, and the happy days. And listen, we are so glad that you are joining us today. Before we jump into our actual podcast, let me remind you that if you enjoy this, then we ask that you would like, subscribe, and also share. That being said, let's roll the intro video. Today's episode is brought to you by the word grace. Grace is our word of the day, and it is the word charis. It means graciousness, a manner in which we act. It is both literal and figurative, and I love this portion of the meaning. It is especially the divine influence upon the heart and its reflection seen in your life. God's grace is His divine influence on my heart, and then that reflection seen in my life. Today I want to welcome to our studio Miss Malinda Rogers. Thank you so much for being with us today. So give you a little bit of backstory. Miss Melinda has literally known me longer than just about anybody else in the world. How long have we known? I mean,
since 1992.
1990. Wow, that's so. I knew you before I knew my wife.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So when we go back to, and we'll talk about more in a minute, but when we go back to and begin to talk about, our history and things we've seen and experienced together, goodness sake, 1992. So we are right now having known each other for like 30 years.
Yes, for
Wow.
30 years.
That is, that's amazing. Cool. Great. Thank you again for being here. Let's jump in with just a couple of icebreakers real quick. And this is what I call the Would You Rather segment. Would you rather be at the beach or the mountains?
The beach.
The beach every time.
That's
Me too.
easy.
Yep. And what are, say, your top three favorite travel, or we'll call them dreams, even if you've never been there, or maybe you have, dream destinations?
The first place would be the beach.
Yeah.
And then right now it's sort of geared towards my grandchildren.
That's an unfair. So automatically, right? It's going to be Arkansas
and California.
And California.
Arkansas and California.
Okay, so what about if we didn't have the kids involved? Vacation spots.
I would love to go back to Germany.
Really?
It's a beautiful country. The history that is there, even in the snow, it is green.
Yeah.
And just to see the architect.
And how long were you in Germany?
Total together, because I was stationed there twice, a total of 10 years.
Wow.
So Brad and I met in Stuttgart, Germany.
Really?
And Elizabeth was born in Stuttgart, Germany.
Wow, very cool.
We were both Army.
Yep. So
there.
you were in the Army. Tell us a little bit. What did you do? How long were you in for? All that kind of good stuff.
I was a topographic engineer, terrain analyst, and so basically we would make products for the commander if he needed to get from Stuttgart, Germany to Frankfurt, Germany, going cross country. That was our job, to make sure he could take the tanks, the trucks, whatever he was driving, from that location to the next. To
the other location.
And so that's what both Brad and I did.
And how long were you in for?
I was in for 8 years.
Ooh, very cool.
Had
very
both
cool.
of my girls while I was active duty, and then was supposed to go to Mogadishu. Thank God I did not. From Fort Bragg.
Really?
And at that point, I knew that Megan could not do separation.
Yeah.
So Brad and I talked about it, and I said it was time for me to get out. That was in 1992, and in 1993, I started working here
at Clifton. And that was not necessarily a stress-free environment back in those days,
No.
making all those MTS packet manuals.
That
and
crazy Rizzo. Oh my goodness.
It resounds in my brain.
Yep.
So that's your service life. Tell us your family. You're married to what you know?
Brad Rogers. We met in Stuttgart, Germany as soldiers. We got married in Denmark.
Oh, wow.
Which back then they had a Darling Denmark tour where you would take the train from Germany to there, get married with your birth certificates and your passports, and then come back married. And then I had Elizabeth right before Desert Storm, and then Megan was our after Desert Storm.
The before and after Desert Storm babies. Very cool. And your kids, your babies are now grown, and how many
30
grandkids?
and 32.
Wow.
4 grandchildren.
Goodness sake, and 4 grandchildren. And I know, of course, Megan has given you 3 of those, and Elizabeth, the oldest,
is the oldest.
Yep, and giving you one of those. And
yep.
Tell us a little bit, because I know even in the past year you've traveled quite a bit to see them. So I believe your last trip, wasn't it out to California?
Yep, out to California.
And where was that, and what'd you guys do?
Megan's husband is at Edwards Air Force Base right outside of Los Angeles. So I went there to see Megan, the 3 kids, and Jermel, and went there to help Megan out because she started college back
with 3 kids,
with
of course.
3 kids that are under the age of 5.
Yeah. I told you we would talk about the nitty and the gritty, guys. This is the truth.
And so I went there to help her and stayed for Athena's 5th birthday. So now she's 5. Ooh. And then came back here.
How challenging is it to have, because obviously my oldest son, Anthony, got married a few months ago and live in LA. And so my daughter, Rebecca, she's given me 2 grandkids and is in the process of making the 3rd one. And they've always been here. How challenging is it to have, because obviously Anthony and Emily, they live in California and LA, and at some point will be giving me grandbabies. How difficult is it to be literally
separated
across the nation? You're not even talking about a 2-hour drive. To
me, it's very hard. Skype helps, but it's not the same as holding them.
Yeah.
And then normally when we're Skyping, either the oldest girl, which is Athena, or the oldest boy, Ezra, will go, Nani, when are you coming to visit?
Of course, right?
And so that pulls at your heartstrings.
Yeah,
so we tried to work in between. And then last year, I got stuck there.
Yeah,
We were there for 7 months because you couldn't fly.
Yep, you couldn't go anywhere, do anything in the heat of COVID.
And so my husband's here and I'm there.
Yeah.
And so
it was almost like military life again.
I was deployed.
Deployed in Desert Storm.
Yeah, because they have storms there. Oh my goodness.
Let's talk a little bit about our history together. You and I, we've done mission trips together and things like that. Tell our audience a little bit about some of our adventures.
Well, my only mission trips I've ever taken were with you and your dad to Haiti.
Yep.
And I had just finished MTS 1 and 2. And so at the end of it, your dad always offered the class to go on a mission trip during the summer to Haiti.
And where do we go? What do we do?
We went to Jeremy.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. They told us it was supposed to take 4 hours and it took 17
hours to get there.
To get from Port-au-Prince to Jeremy over this mountain in and literally roads.
Yeah, and it is a 4-hour trip. It's just not a 4-hour trip when you can only go 5 miles an hour.
Oh, that's the difference.
That's the difference. When you got
the people were walking faster than our cars.
The little old lady walking her donkey was going faster than we were.
Yeah.
And I remember that trip. Pastor Ed, I believe, was on that trip with us, and he just I was driving, and he kept being like, "Josh, slow down. Josh, slow down." And I'm like, "That's right. I'm idling, man. I can't go any slower than I'm going." Who was on that trip?
It was Pastor Randy was there. Yep. You, me, your dad, Pastor Ed, Miss Eva.
Yep.
Pastor Eva. There were
Sonia?
other Sonia Von Wall.
Yep.
Yes.
And what about was that the one where was Tammy on that?
No, Tammy Colbert went with my mom, mother-in-law.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah.
The daughteries were there.
Yep. Chris and Missy.
And so Pastor Randy was driving my vehicle, and we were running out of gas, so he kept turning it off to go down
the hills.
And I'm sitting up front going, "Oh my God, we're gonna die! We're gonna die! We're gonna die!"
And I remember us going over the mountains, right? And then you crest the mountain and you're looking down on Jeremy, and I had this hope-filled optimism. Oh, we're finally there. It's right there. And it was still hours, and hours
away.
and hours
it was
away.
Crazy.
And do you remember, what did we do on that trip?
We did children's ministry, and also we went out to Pastor Antonio's wife's, where she was born and ministered out there, which was really cool.
Had we planted the church in Jeremy yet, or
no?
Was it?
That was the start.
That was
of
the start
plant.
of the plant in Jeremy.
Yep. And
Very
so
cool.
we've been to Jeremy twice together.
And so wait,
so we were tricked.
Yeah, you went one time to Jeremy, and you went back again. You're crazy. That's it.
Well, and I kept trying to get your dad and Pastor Randy to say where we're going, where we're going, and they didn't tell me until after I'd already paid.
Yeah.
And they're like, because I was still working here.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
And so they were like, we're going to Jeremy, and I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Not again, please, not again. Yeah, I remember Antonio, Pastor Antonio, he would tell me, there's two ways to get to Jeremy. You can drive there, and it takes 16 hours, or you can take a boat. The problem with bringing a boat is, because it's just down the coast from Port-au-Prince, but the problem with taking a boat is you don't have a vehicle. And so that's why I have always wanted to take the boat, though, over to Jeremy, just because that'd be such a great
adventure.
had,
the guy that was the coroner. What was his name? Joe Johnson.
Yeah, Joe Johnson.
And his wife.
Yep.
And she prayed against the boat.
Yeah. Because
she didn't want
to. As if she had to worry about that.
Yeah, she was like, no, I don't want to go on the boat. But I mean, you go there, you think you're gonna change the people's lives, but seeing them give so much out of nothing, it changes your heart. You'll never be the same again. And I always tell people, if you only go on one mission trip out of this country, do it, because it will change your whole perspective
on everything.
We went there to give them the gospel, and they gave us love. These people saved up for almost a year just to feed us one meal.
Yeah, and what a meal! Remember that?
Yeah, that meal was
I'll never
amazing.
forget that. Yep. They feasted us. Literally the food.
They treated us like royalty.
Yep. Yeah. What a great. I forgot about that. But what a great just time of feasting. It was just great. And the hospitality, the love.
Their heart.
Yeah. It's interesting because recently in Port-au-Prince, 17 people were kidnapped, and I think 16 of them were Americans and one was a Canadian. And so oftentimes individuals can be very fearful of Haiti. But I think one of the things that we need to understand is that there are places that are very dangerous, but 95% of the rest of the island is perfectly safe and hospitable and loving and caring. And, for me, even when living in the Dominican Republic, working amongst the Haitian refugees, these are the poorest of the poor in dire circumstances, and yet the most friendly, the most loving, the most caring. There's been times when you see somebody, you meet somebody, and you could be meeting them for the very first time, and they'll sit down and invite you to share a meal with them.
Yep.
And that's one thing I've never lacked for appreciation when it comes to Haiti and their culture, the people, and their ability to just be extraordinarily hospitable. And down in Haiti, it really reminds me. I do a bit at the end of the show where I talk about rules to live by in the South. Well, it's funny because as I think about it, in Haiti, a lot of the hospitality that we have as Southerners is things that you see down there also. You always say hello to people you're passing in the street. You always say good morning and how are you? And before you even begin to ask a question or ask for directions, you always greet the individual first. And a lot of their community events revolve around food and being able to just share and feast and have a great time. Now for kind of the question that we've all been waiting for, and you may not have known this about Miss Melinda, but tell me about when you died.
It was June 10th, 2003. I was working as a cafeteria person in Elizabeth and Megan's school.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth was in middle school in 6th grade, and Megan was in 4th grade in elementary school. So I would prepare her food, the elementary school food, at the middle school cafeteria and then carry it to Megan's school. And so I was doing that. I had driven my van to get the military vehicle that I used to transport the food, because we're in Germany. So
this actually, when you died, it wasn't even here. It was actually in Germany.
It was in Germany, in Wiesbaden, Germany, which was God, which you'll see in a minute. But so I had driven my van, driven their vehicle, and went to go do the first lunch. And we were just finishing up the first lunch, and Megan was counting the tickets, because I had to keep a ledger of how many people gave me tickets, how much money was collected. And then I went to the back to make a phone call and passed out. And that's when I had my heart attack. And thankfully there was a nurse, a registered nurse that was working as a cafeteria monitor. She came and started CPR on me immediately.
Yeah.
And then she sent Megan and the guy to get the guy that was helping her count tickets, one of her friends, to go get the other nurse, because she didn't want her to see me.
Yes, yeah.
And so I was in a back room. These were all elementary school kids. So we had the younger grades in the cafeteria.
Here you are. Yeah. And I mean,
and I died.
Died in front of, Yeah.
Thankfully, I went to the back.
Yes, yeah.
And
yeah,
so
you
I
didn't just
passed
pass
out in where the sinks were.
Yep.
And then those two nurses worked on me for 20 minutes while the ambulances got there. And yes, I said ambulances, because this was an American on foreign soil.
Yes.
And so the German ambulance came, the American ambulance, the German police, the German fire, the American police, the American fire, to this little elementary school.
You caused a fuss.
In Basehausen.
Yeah.
And so thankfully the German ambulances come with a doctor.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, as opposed to just I don't want to say just an EMT.
Yeah.
But you've got a full-blown.
Doctor that just happened to be the head of cardiology at the best cardiologist hospital in all of Europe.
Yeah.
5 minutes down the road from where I had my heart attack. And so he worked on me, and his staff seriously did the surgery there in the cafeteria in that back room. They did everything they needed to do from 11:30 to 2:30. That's 3 hours to stabilize me enough to move me 5 minutes down the road.
5 minutes down the road.
And to make it more exciting, where was Brad?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
In Iraq.
He
was in Baghdad, Iraq, serving with 1st Armored Division.
Let me stop you, and we'll jump right back in there. But that is one of the things that has always amazed me about military families. Is not just the sacrifice of the soldiers, which I love and appreciate the sacrifice of those who go, but then the sacrifice also of the families that are left
behind
wherever. And in your case, there he is serving his country, right? And I mean, really, and one of the points I really want to make that just kind of hits home, because we're talking about that divine reflection, what grace is, and or the divine influence in its reflection, because at that moment, Brad could have very easily have shaken his fist at God. Why, God? Here I am. I'm serving my country. I'm a man of God. I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And so how did that play out?
So they have to notify him. Now remember, my girls were basically by themselves now. And so here is a 6th grader and a 4th grader with their mother that had passed out and died. And thank God for the military community. because they came together and they took care of those girls, because it took them almost 2.5 days to even get Brad back to the hospital.
Yeah.
Because he's coming from Baghdad.
Yeah, it's not like,
And
I mean, you can
it's
just hop in
not
the car.
like you can just hop in the car and go.
5 minutes later, we're up
Yeah.
at Cape Fear.
And so the military community is a community that will never turn their back on each other, because we're all walking the same road.
Yeah.
And so it was our pastors and the staff, the school, the principal stayed there until Megan was picked up by somebody.
Wow.
And everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
So they notified Brad, and then Brad didn't even get notified before your dad.
Yeah.
Because we had a prayer chain from Bad Kreuznach.
Yep.
2 of our leaders from Bad Kreuznach, which happened to be one of Brad's soldiers from Bad Kreuznach, was in here at Cliffdale Christian Center.
And I remember when we got the call, we were like, pray.
Yeah.
Just pray.
Yeah.
You know?
And so her and her husband came to meet with your dad and Vicky, and it's like, Melinda's had a heart attack and she's dead.
Yep. Yeah.
And they've got her in an induced coma to bring Brad home. He doesn't even know yet.
Wow.
And so that's how your dad and mom found out.
Yeah.
Then what does your dad do? I've been told this. I don't know if it's true, but he got up on a Wednesday night and said, for all of you that know Melinda, she died.
Yep. That's, well, you know.
And then he went into, we need to pray.
Yep.
Because she's got a long road. But yeah, so I'm there fighting for my life. I don't remember any of it.
Sure, yeah.
And thank God, because getting defib 21 times, you probably
you don't want to remember
not
that.
Want to remember. And they get Brad back, but they told him as soon as he got to the hospital, because he came straight from the airport to the hospital. The lieutenant picked him up, brought him straight to the hospital. Ken Gallion was there with him. And they said, before you go see her, she's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you now, she won't make it. And we're only keeping her alive so you can say goodbye. And he goes in there to see me, and I don't even know how long that they were with me, but they were like, okay, you can go home, go see the girls, because he hadn't even seen the girls, and they knew what was going on.
Now, how long had he been deployed?
28 days.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We were supposed to fly home the next day.
Yeah.
We were flying from Frankfurt to Charleston, and Chris and Ken were picking us up at Charleston, and then we were going to go spend a week at Curry Beach with the Boers. So I was supposed to fly out the next day, but he was only deployed 28 days. And so they get him in there. He visits. He goes to see the girls, him and Ken. Ken had already made lasagna so that he could eat, because of course he didn't eat. He just wanted to get home. And while they were eating, the patient liaison, which was also in our chapel in Bad Kreuznach, called him and said, what are you doing? And he goes, we're eating. She goes, well, you need to get up here. Melinda's asking for you.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I mean, just whoosh, wow.
And so what they had done was taken me down on my meds so that I could wake back up and pass away. And they got there, and I was like, what happened? They tell me a heart attack. Where's the girls? Where were you at? And so it was all these questions, one after another, because my memory was like maybe 5 seconds.
Yeah, wow.
So I kept asking him, and they let that go on for 30 minutes, and then the doctor came in and said, she needs to rest. They take him out off the ward, and they tell him, this is rare. This happens a lot, that they'll get lucent right before they pass away. But I'm telling you, she's still not going to make it. If she does, she'll be a vegetable. Well, God and prayer. Thank God for God.
Yeah.
He said, not today.
And not today, Death.
The kids and him even talk about, they had to give me the heparin shots to get the blood flowing again. Well, it looked like I had a footprint on my stomach from the heparin shots, because it makes you bruise easily. And the girls and Brad joked about God kicked me
Yeah.
back into play. Get back
Yeah.
down there. And so that day, that was June 10th. By June 12th, I was walking around. By June 20th, they had put the defibrillator
Yep.
in, the defibrillator pacemaker, which this is my third one that I have now. And on June 22nd, I walked out of a ward that you only go from there to the morgue.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody leaves that morgue.
Nobody leaves it
standing
alive.
up. Yeah, walking. Wow.
And so they at first they were like, "This is strange.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't us."
Yeah.
Because they didn't believe in God and healing.
Sure. Yeah.
And there was the head of the chaplains. There was Chaplain Mazzoni. He was a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
He didn't believe in healing either. But when he saw it
Yeah.
clear,
Yeah.
this man went out for over a year giving my testimony to everybody. And so the military community in Germany was very small. I couldn't go anywhere without being recognized.
People, everybody knew you.
Everybody
You know,
knew
the woman
me.
who came
It's
back
like,
from the dead.
she's the one.
Yeah.
And so it was really weird because I didn't like all that limelight. If you know me, you know I would rather be behind
Yes.
the booth
Yeah.
or doing envelopes, you know.
Behind the back booth. Behind,
Yeah.
well, behind the behind.
Yep.
Yep.
And so it was really weird, and it made me question, why me, God?
Yeah.
Why? Why me and not somebody else? And so,
I'll tell you why. It was for me. Because I lean on you guys so much. I need
Yeah.
you.
Well, and for one thing, I would have never seen my grandchildren.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can't say that without tearing up.
It's true. It's
And
true.
so when I got the second chance at life, that day I decided that, I lived fervently for the
Mhm.
Lord
Yep.
before, but it was going to be the Lord always
Yeah.
and forever until the
That's
end,
so powerful.
no matter what.
Yeah.
Because he gave me a second chance, and not everybody gets that.
No, and what a blessing. Because you think about from that day until this, and I sit back and I think about the impact that both you and Pastor Brad have had in my life. You are one of the few that have seen me literally at my most stupidest, foolish, silly. You have lived my story with me.
Yep.
The good and the bad, the tragic, the loss of my mom, the loss of my dad.
Yeah.
It is so many. The birth of my children. There's so many, so much of our story that we've shared, and now to be such close partners, both you and Brad, in the ministry that Dad has, I'll say bequeathed or given to me.
Yep.
And for you guys to be the individuals who I lean on, who, when I'm unable to do a wedding or a funeral or visit somebody in the hospital, you guys are the ones who are the ones I'm able to lean on and send and take care of, and know that you will care for individuals who I love. And that's something that I think is remarkably cool, that we've shared so much of our stories together, and yet there's so much, the partnership is still there, and so much that we have yet to share. And
we're,
the adventures.
We're family.
Yeah. The adventures we
Look,
haven't seen yet.
We've seen both of us at our worst times.
Yep.
At our
and our best times.
times.
And the adventures that kind of, I'll say, we have in the future. And so, just great stuff. And that brings us to back here, because after that, you guys came back home.
Yep.
To Fort Bragg, and give me just a quick rundown of what that looked like.
When we first came back to Cliffdale, it was so changed. The different leaders. Your dad and mom were there. Pastor Randy was there, but the rest of the people, I felt like I was in a place I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And so I would sit in the back, and we would go to church, and then we would leave.
You'd be the couple that were the first ones out.
Because I felt like I didn't belong anymore. And then I had to really talk to God, and I wasn't even coming to the women's meetings or anything like that, because I didn't feel like this was my home.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after we came back in 2004, And in January of 2005, I'm like, if this is where I'm going to be, then I need to get replanted, because the military is weird. We were over there for 5 years. My girls were little kids, and when we came back, they were teenagers.
Yes.
And so I would bring them to youth group
Yep.
when
I
you
remember.
and Amber were
Yep.
over it, because I trusted y'all.
Yeah.
But I still didn't feel like Cliffdale was my place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I knew more about the youth group than anything else. And so I would take them to their, what was it called? Well, small group meeting with Miss Mel.
Excuse me. Yes.
And,
and that's back when we were doing youth small groups and had,
But did I come to Wednesday night service? No, because I didn't feel like a place. But in 2005, on my birthday, I was like, God, if this is where I'm supposed to be, I need to get plugged back in.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and talked to your mom, and I was like, I want to be a part of the ladies' ministry.
Yep.
And she's like, okay, well, first you need to take MTS 3. So I go in there, and it was already all the MTS classes that I'd already taken.
Yeah, because it had been revised by then.
And your dad was like, she doesn't need to be in here.
Yeah, she's taking
Vic.
all this.
She's already taken all of these.
Yeah.
She could probably just hand in her old papers.
Yeah.
Because she probably still has them.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, but I was just being obedient.
Yep, yeah.
And sometimes God needs you to do that.
Yep.
Just be obedient. If that was Vicky was the leader and that's what Vicky wanted, then that's what Vicky got.
Yep, yep.
And that's the kind of heart, because it's God first, Jesus, and then whoever is over
Your
me.
spiritual, and I love that I've always seen in both you and Pastor Brad. It has always been, no matter what it is, we'll do it.
Yeah.
In that no matter what time, no matter where, no matter how, you guys are the guys who get it done,
Yep.
And I don't like it because being spiritual leadership, I don't like using the word obedience, but being those individuals who are always the highest level of submission and willingness to, just again go above and beyond. And so,
Well, and that's for one thing, that's my mom.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't follow her, you got beat.
Yeah.
And then the military, that's what the military instills in you. So, working under your dad, it was just like
just like being in the military.
Yeah. And so to do anything he asked was no problem.
Command Sergeant Major.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd put him in the general category.
In the general, probably. At least full bird.
Yeah, at least full bird. But so it's always been easy because I was raised an Air Force brat.
Yes, yep.
And so that was structured, and then you go into the military and structure.
And then ministry is
structure
very,
because
very
you
similar.
have to have it.
Yep, you have to.
In order to be productive.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine a lot of there may be a lot of places that lack that structure, but I think if you're going to do anything effective for the kingdom, you've got to have it, and you've got to have people who are willing to exhibit that level of obedience and love, and all of those things. So great stuff. Well. Before we close today, once again, thank you so much for joining us at A Goodman's Tale. And as you guys know, before I let you go, every time I like to give you rules to live by in the South. This is rule number 36. One word, friends, grits. They're only done one way, not with sugar, but with salt, with bacon grease, with cheese, but never with syrup. Never with sugar, brown sugar. That's cream of wheat. That's oatmeal. But when you do grits, you do them one way. You do them savory, okay? And you need to know that you don't have to limit the grit to just one meal a day. The grit is perfectly capable of being eaten at breakfast, at lunch, and at dinner. You can do shrimp and grits for lunch and then fish and grits for dinner. It is literally one of the most perfect I don't want to say elements, but one of the most perfect foods that you can possibly eat is the grit, because it is so versatile and can be eaten with so many different things and at so many different times. And that's your, the rules to live by in the South. And that's about all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Once again, listen, if you would like, subscribe, and share. And until next time, I tell you what, how about you live life with all you've got?